on the health, safety, or general welfare of persons residing, working, or conducting business in the vicinity, to mitigate injury to property in the vicinity, to mitigate any risk to safety of persons or property because of vehicular traffic or parking, large gatherings of people, or other causes. And we use the zoning map revised. It's not October 18. What is it now? January or July? I need to change that. When was the zoning map revised?
Actually,
June.
I know Jesse did. Didn't Jesse make some changes just recently?
It would have been the February's general plan adoption as amended by other ordinances. So
February 2020?
yes.
Okay. Conclusions of law. Providence City has adopted land use ordinances that include conditional uses and provisions for conditional uses. The Cache County GIS parcel summary indicates this parcel is in a wildfire, slope, and landslide hazard areas. Providence City has the authority to impose reasonable conditions to mitigate the reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed use. The request meets the requirements of the codes listed in the findings of fact with the following conditions. The applicant will continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, and Providence City rules, laws, codes, and ordinances. The applicant will mitigate hazard wildfire, slope, and landslide areas by, and they have a mitigation statement that was submitted with the application dated 9/29/20. They also have a geotech investigation of Little Baldy Lot 14 is included with the application. This conditional use is for the pavilion only, as shown in the site plan, date stamped September 30th, 2020. Aaron Walker, Fire Inspector, reviewed the parcel in the interest of the fire safety provisions and regulations as adopted by the state of Utah and in accordance with the International Fire Code. Approval by the city of any application submitted or paperwork does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated.
Is there anything you want to add?
No?
Okay. Steve, did you and your clients get a copy of this report? Have you had time to?
Of the report that she just read.
They did not get a copy of this because they just did it. I just updated it this morning.
Okay. Can you?
I have a copy for them.
Okay.
It's on my desk. I'll go get it.
Okay. While Diane's grabbing this report for you, so we'll talk about Aaron Walker's letter first. Aaron has reviewed this and is being recommended to Providence City for approval. He discusses the access, says there's limited access from 850 East. The proposed structure is an accessory building, not a dwelling unit. Limited access is acceptable for group U structures, including barns, carports, private garages, and pavilions/sheds. He talks about fire hydrant locations. The proposed structure is a private pavilion/shed, and per the 2018 IFC is considered a Group U building, not to be used or occupied at any time as any other use. The water supply is presumed adequate with a slightly longer than normal distance to the hydrants. He also discusses fire flow. Says the proposed structure is a Group U pavilion shed. Homes in the area are much larger than the proposed outbuilding and as such are assumed to have adequate water available for fire flow. Then as far as the wildfire hazard area, he's looking at, it says the builder is planning on a Class A roof covering, which is approved, planning on closing all underfloor decks and eaves and soffits, which is approved. The structure has no vents that need screens. His other comment is with the yard being completely completed to and around the pavilion, this will provide appropriate defensible space. So those comments are incorporated into our conditions as part of being referenced by our conditions. And then, Steve, it looks like you've provided us with a statement that you propose to reduce or eliminate potential wildfire hazard through the construction process by reducing the foliage in the construction area. The accessory building is intended to be installed at the same time as the landscaping and sprinklers in that area. This will provide grass and sprinklers around the accessory building, thus eliminating weeds and tall grasses and creating a buffer around the structure. The area of construction is in a moderate slope area, and the location of the accessory building will allow us to create more controlled slopes directly around the structure, reducing slide off, landslide, and runoff problem areas. Ryan, do you have any comments you want to make on this one?
I don't know this one.
Okay. April, do you have anything? All right. Max and Rob, do you have concerns, comments that you'd like to discuss?
Do you know whether or not they're planning on removing all the vegetation and doing extra landscaping all the way to their west property line?
They weren't going to at this point. So below that was going to just remain down to, because no one knows, they don't know. They've not been told what's going to happen with that, if that's a road or if that's never going to be finished.
So they're going to leave it until the road or whatever happens there?
Until they know, yeah. With what I'm doing with this pavilion, we were going to kind of get it manicured landscaping back to that pavilion and around the pavilion, but below that, they've not mentioned to me what they're going to do.
I see. It's just kind of curious that we're because of the hazard that we're relating this to, being a fire hazard, that you're putting literally a fireplace right next to the fire hazard area. And if they don't do something to maintain those weeds, look to me, if they don't do that steeper slope down to the west property line, there could be some tall weeds over time that come up and be really in a fairly close vicinity of their fireplace. And I don't know, exactly how awesome this fireplace will be, of what its hazards itself could pose to the area.
Yeah, so all fireplaces like that have to have a spark arrestor cap on them so that no sparks can come up through. I don't, if they throw all their school papers in there and burn them, who knows where that stuff goes. But so the intention is to have enough buffer on the downhill side that they can drive the vehicle down to that. There won't be a permanent driveway down there, but they will create the slope so that they can. So there's going to be a 15 to 20 foot buffer on that downhill side of flattened manicured space.
Gravel driveway of some sort?
Yeah, some sort of access. He's talked about doing the honeycomb stuff that you put in the grass so that you can grow grass over it, that kind of stuff. So we'll have some sort of drivable surface, whether it be grass with the honeycomb structure in it or whether it's the gravel.
That's my only interesting concern related to this one. Has that fire potential for the hazard that we're talking about?
Max, do you have anything?
No, I had a similar one, but it does say that they're going to grade around it, and it's got the gravel driveway on the west side of, they're going to plant grass around it, and does have gravel on the west side. I'm only speculating, but obviously it looks like there could be plans for future stuff, maybe a pool or who knows what. But yeah, and you already touched on it. I guess Diane did the idea that it's just for this pavilion, this application.
Right.
So.
Yeah, once this pavilion built, there's no other place for them to build anything between the home and this pavilion. It's the slopes wouldn't allow them to do anything. Down below that would, again, would have to be another submittal. And then also the lots either side of their home are not built on yet, so the vegetation that's growing there is far more of a fire hazard than what would be down below this. There will be water. There'll be a water spigot run down to this pavilion, so there'll be a source of water at the pavilion itself. There's some mitigating circumstances with that.
I apologize, Diane. Maybe I missed it, but you said there was a geotech report included in our packet?
Yeah.
It was, wasn't there?
Yes.
I don't think I seen.
Did I not send that to you guys?
No, I don't think so.
With this,
It's
and I
the
gave you everything physically, we didn't email it, but it was emailed with lot 14. It's the same geotech report that was submitted with the home.
Yeah. It's the lot 14 geotech report. I've got it right here.
It came with the packet individually, but not in this manager's packet. So I think we got the email, it was just separated.
Yeah. Actually, no, this came, it's stamped the 30th, so that's when he brought in everything else. So,
That came in on the 30th of September,
yes.
so that didn't come in with the home.
No, he brought a copy of, it's the same geotech that was used with the home, but the same copy he's using it right now.
Okay, all right. Does it address the landslide potential?
Yes, it does. You guys want to take a look at it?
Would you just look at the summary part for the landslide potential and just for the record, briefly talk about that?
Too many papers on that. It has existing site conditions.
I need to have you come up to the microphone.
Sorry.
That's okay. I do it all the time, planning and council.
So there's several summary and findings for the different studies that they did. Trying to find one that's significant or specifically for the landslide.
And I guess my other question is, when they looked at that, did they look at the entire lot, or did they only look at that with the idea of how the home would fit on the lot and what they needed to do for the home's foundation?
I can't find a summary.
So if you go to the email that she sent, it's in that one from September 30th.
Okay.
It's in that email. You scroll down.
All right. It talks about, there's discussions and recommendations section, and it has summary of findings, and then, which is really short, but then it has earthwork and site preparation that will happen. Yeah, I can't really see a summary for the whole lot, but I haven't read through the entire thing.
Well, I have to apologize. Going back through my emails from you for September 30th, I don't have one on the Britain. So. Okay.
I don't remember seeing the actual pictures. Just from my phone, so
Okay.
This was done in August of 2019.
Okay. So, when you looked at it, does it appear that it took into consideration the entire lot?
Yes.
Okay. All right. With that being said, Max, do you feel like the strategies and everything they've presented are adequate?
Yeah, I didn't review the geotech either, but from, the other submittal, yeah, the rest of it appears to be adequate. I am looking through it right now, and the 2 boreholes that they did take are only, there's an exhibit on page 32 of that, of the PDF, and it only shows the 2 boreholes right where the home is being built.
That's kind of what I could remember from back when they did
Yeah,
it, when we looked at the
shows it
home.
there on that exhibit.
So, but if you feel like we're still okay, then,
Well, you never know how much variability there would be in the soils, but it is a fairly large lot. It's a half-acre of land, so, or over a half-acre.
so from a building permit standpoint, does the building inspector require the same type of diligence as they do on a home, as far as the foundation or the, I just went blank, the pavilion, the footings for the pavilion? Is this pavilion on a foundation? It is, isn't it?
It's on, so there's two large spot footings and then the rest are pure footings.
Pier footings, that was the word I was trying to think of. So, do you have to go down to native ground for those?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the county
So,
will always, they won't pass their inspection unless they can see you're sitting on native, so.
okay, all right. Okay, with that being said, I would entertain a motion to approve the conditional use application for a pavilion located at 247 North, 850 East in Providence, based on the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions presented in the staff report and during the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Rob Stapley, second by Max Pierce. Is there anyone that has any questions or comments before I ask for the vote? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Voting is unanimous. Thanks, Steve. Diane will get the record of decision put together, and then she'll contact you, and you can take it and go get your permit with the county.
Okay, very good.
All right.
One item for you, Scarlett. If you were looking, the spelling on the file is with an R instead of a T, depending on how you were searching. But you were included on the email.
I'm sure I was.
Anyway, I just noticed there was a difference in those 2 spellings, so
Yeah.
if that might help your.
Yeah.
So- Anyway,
I don't know why it didn't come up in my search.
yeah.
But I don't doubt that I didn't get it sent. I just couldn't find it.
No, I just figured if you were searching,
Yeah.
I did notice there was a different, 1 letter difference, so.
Okay. All right. So our next agenda item is buried. Do it this way. All right. So the next one is the Providence City Administrative Land Use Authority will consider for approval a request by Visionary Homes and Brent and Diana Miller for a new home located at 254 North, 850 East in Providence. And so Jessica, your clients submitted a new site plan. They submitted one and then they submitted a different one just
Yeah,
recently,
the driveway
right?
wasn't on the old one, and when Diane pointed that out, I was like,
Can I get you to pop up here?
of course. The driveway wasn't on the old one, and so when I asked for one with the driveway on it, they had changed the position of the house, unbeknownst to me. So that is their final move, though. I have said it will not move from that spot, and they were okay with that. So that's final decision where that house is at.
So Diane, you've looked at this though, and it's still in the still in the buildable envelope.
I've confirmed that as well. It is not outside that envelope, nor shall it be.
Okay, all right. Diane, do you want to introduce this one for a minute?
The application was received on September 22nd. Rob inspected the infrastructure on September 24th, and Aaron Walker sent in his review letter on September 30th. Findings of fact are the same as the last one. Conclusions of law, number 2 is the only different one. Cache County GIS parcel summary indicates this parcel is in hazard wildfire, slope, landslide, and earthquake fault areas. And Providence City has the authority to impose reasonable conditions to mitigate the reasonably anticipated detrimental effects. Aaron Walker inspected the parcel in the interest of the fire safety provisions. And the request meets the requirements of the codes listed in the findings of fact with the following conditions. The applicant will continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, and province city rules, laws, codes, and ordinances. The applicant will mitigate hazard areas by, and we have a letter from Aaron Walker dated September 30th, which has conditions on it. And they also sent in a mitigation strategies statement, date stamped September 22nd. This conditional use is for the residents only as shown on the site plan, updated and submitted on 10/6/2020, and I think I emailed that out to all of you, so you could look at that yesterday. Aaron Walker reviewed the parcel. Actually, that's the same as that statement. I think I'm going to change that on the record of decision. Approval by the city of any application submitted or paperwork does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated.
Okay, thank you. April, do you have any comments on this one?
No.
Ryan, do you have any comments? Okay, so let's quickly review Aaron's letter. Now, Aaron's been actually in contact with the Millers as well, right?
Yeah, so the Millers were really active working with him directly to make sure we had the right fire things. They were going to try to make a road work and do with the fire turnaround, but they just determined their law it was going to be a little unfeasible, so they've gone with the engineered fire sprinkler. And I think they're going to do a pretty substantial road still. I just don't think they're doing a big turnaround where they have the sprinkler system now.
Okay.
Or as big a turnaround as there could be.
All right. So here's what he has
Can I ask a question real quick then? Because I do have 2 different site plans that I'm looking at. And the one that's kind of got this snaky driveway, is that not current? It shows
That
a
is the
turnaround?
current one.
No, that is the current one. It's just, I don't believe the turnaround is as big as it could be, like for Aaron's, if we were going with just the turnaround for Aaron's approval. I don't think it's as big as it could be since they went with the fire sprinkler system. So there is still some play in the road that like big vehicles could still get up there. I just don't know if it's like the full width required for a fire truck where they have the sprinkler system.
Okay. So it's the one you sent out yesterday
Yeah.
then? Okay, all right.
So are they still required to meet the slopes for the fire engine, even though they went with the fire sprinklers to help avoid the need for the turnaround of the fire engine?
Not to my knowledge. I think they've still, or they've snaked it around. I think they've still mitigated the slope. I don't know that all of it is under 12%.
10%. I'm not sure. I've
I
heard a
think
couple
it was a
different
minimum
things.
of 12% was when I talked to him last time. They had 12% was the max slope
Oh.
on the lot.
That's what he's got on his letter.
Well, and it does say that on the exhibit too, that's on the site plan, it actually says 12% maximum slope.
Right.
So yeah, so then they might. So I was just told that where they did the fire sprinkler system, that they were okay as far as Aaron went, because I know the road is still pretty exhaustive of his requirements. I just don't think it met all the requirements for the fire turnaround, so they went with this fire sprinkler system as their other alternative.
Okay, well, the letter that we've got, Jessica, from the 30th, which should reflect the changes on the plat that was submitted, it does say so the first part is talking about access, and it says fire department apparatus access road shall extend to within 150 feet of all portions of the structure and all portions of the exterior walls of the first story of the building as measured around the exterior of the building. Then he's got to complete on that. Completed, excuse me. And then he's got dead-end fire apparatus access roads in excess of 150 feet in length shall be provided with an approved area for turning around fire apparatus. Identify and provide dimensions for an approved fire department turnaround as outlined in the 2018 IFC, and he's got completed on that. The maximum grade of the fire department access road shall not exceed 12%. Identify slope and grade of the driveway and turnaround on the plan. It's got completed on that one. Maximum grade of the turnaround shall not exceed 4% in slope. Identify on the plans. Is that on there too, Max?
It is, but I'm not sure it's feasible the way it's shown. I mean, it may or may not be, because it
Oh yeah, there it is. I didn't see
yeah,
that.
it doesn't, I mean, for the full turnaround, it doesn't appear that it's gonna be 4% everywhere in the turnaround.
Well, and I think that's where the fire sprinkler system comes into play, because it's my understanding in talking with Aaron that there's multiple options you can do. So you can do the big road and the fire turnaround, which the Millers have got most of that in. And then if the road wasn't going to be like 100% able to meet all those conditions, your other alternative is to go with the fire sprinkler system, which is what they've done as an engineered fire sprinkler system. So I think what it came down to is they weren't going to be able to make the slope work for the full turnaround. So the road is pretty like hefty road that you can get up and everything, but I think the turnaround is where the issue was. They're not going to have that huge complete turnaround, which is where the fire sprinkler system, it's my understanding, was coming into play to make the house still work for the fire hazard.
The
Yeah.
fire sprinkler system on Aaron's letter actually impacts the fire water flow requirement. That's what he's got on here is with the fire flow reduction allowance for sprinklers, the amount available for fire flow is sufficient for this site and construction of this type. I can't see anything in his letter, and maybe Rob or Max, maybe I've just missed it when I was reading it earlier, but I didn't see anything in his letter on the access that said that the sprinkler system was going to mitigate any part of that access. But it did mitigate some of the fire flow requirements. Max, I
That's the
apologize, I cut you off.
No, that's the way I'm reading it too, Scarlett, is that
Well, maybe he just needs to update it, because I know I have talked to Aaron before, and I know if a road is 150 feet longer, that's where you do have to have the turnaround, but if you do sprinkler system, you can actually have your driveway go up to 300 feet without having a turnaround.
Yeah, that's my understanding, is that if the road isn't a totally viable option, the fire sprinkler system is the other alternative.
So maybe he just needs to update his letter.
We'll verify that with him. But whatever it ends up, it'll have to meet, in the end, he'll have to approve whatever it works out to be, and we'll have to approve it. So we will hold whatever, we'll probably anticipate making the motion similar to something that it will be completed as shown on the drawing unless otherwise approved by the fire department, by the fire officials.
I know, like I said, my sales agent has been working really closely with the Millers on this and with Aaron Walker to get it approved and getting me all this information. I know they've worked really closely with him to make sure. It was just like, by the time they got the road in, I think just the turnaround, there were just some concerns. So the option Aaron proposes, do the fire sprinkler system, and then that way you've got the road in and it's gonna meet those things, but the fire sprinkler system is there as well to make sure that your house is in compliance with all areas of it.
So does this site plan, from your recollection, match up typically with Aaron Walker's dimensions on his hammerhead?
Just off the top of my head, it does, but again, the thing that's a little bit bothersome is a site plan showing 4% in the turnaround, but it also shows 12% max in the driveway, and the turnaround and the driveway are one and the same in some place, portion of it. So my question would be is, you're saying the driveway's 12 max, the turnaround's 4, but they're the same here, so which one are they gonna be? Is it 12 or 4? You know what I mean?
I see that.
And I understand where you're coming from. On the sprinkler system is a mitigation tool, but the area it takes to turn around one of those big emergency fire engines is dependent. The sprinkler system can't mitigate the size of that truck.
Right.
So the sprinkler system can mitigate a little bit response time, it can mitigate a little bit flow, but it wouldn't be able to mitigate the ability of the truck to turn around. So maybe it'll have to be something that they do on site as they're finishing it up, because it will have to work for the truck to be able to get up there. So.
And I know that they have plans to excavate around that to make it a pretty accessible driveway. I mean, there's no way you could build up there without really excavating that out and making sure that it's reachable, because those lots do have a lot of slope.
Yes, they do. Okay, let me finish reading his things. The existing Bonneville Shoreline Trail, Deer Fence Trail, also serves as a permanent emergency vehicle and wildland fire department access easement and must be maintained and usable as such. Any proposed gates, fences, and/or any other obstructions crossing this easement shall be approved by the fire department and Providence City prior to the installation. So he says that's been acknowledged. The fire access road shall be constructed of an asphalt, concrete, or other all-approved weather driving surface capable of supporting the imposed load of fire apparatus weighing up to 75,000 pounds. Compaction test is required, and that's been acknowledged. The driveway will need to be graded and roughed in as to allow for a fire department response prior to combustible materials being delivered to the job site. That's been acknowledged. The address numbers are required to be in a conspicuous location at the entrance to the driveway. Numbers shall be at least 4 inches in height with 1 inch stroke on contrasting background. That's been acknowledged. And then when it comes to the fire hydrant locations, he's got a hydrant number 489 located at the driveway entrances within 600 feet of all exterior areas of the home. That's approved. The fire water flow, it's got the fire flow calculation area shall be the total floor area of all floor levels with the exterior walls and under the horizontal projections of the roof of the building. This building appears to be approximately 6,335 square feet in size. According to table B105.11, the fire flow for a combined fire area 6,335 square feet of type B is 2,250 GPM at 20 PSI. Fire flow requirements are subject to change due to separation of fire areas, type of construction, and the installation of a fire suppression system. Fire hydrant 489, located at the driveway entrance to the building lot, is within 600 feet of all exterior areas of the proposed structure and contains a water flow of approximately 1,409 GPM at 20 PSI. The homeowner has decided to use sprinklers as a means of meeting the fire flow requirements per 2018 IFC Table B105.11 with the installation of an approved NFPA 13B sprinkler system. The required fire flow becomes 1,125 GPM at 20 PSI. And then it's got, with the fire flow reduction allowance for sprinklers, the amount of water available for fire flow is sufficient for this size and construction type of structure. Plans for the sprinkler system can be a delayed submittal and shall be reviewed by an approved third-party reviewer prior to being submitted to the fire department and prior to work beginning on the sprinkler system. Several on-site sprinkler system inspections and tests are required. Refer to the Logan City webpage for an approved list of reviewers. And then he's got the website for that. Then, so I know he's been working with them, but I just want to make sure. Diane, did they have a copy of the agenda packet containing his letter? Did you email that to?
I did not receive that, but I'm assuming Diane has it and I can get a copy.
Yeah, I thought I sent packets to everybody, but maybe it's just the agenda.
Okay. We need to make sure that they have copies of Aaron's letters since they do have conditions, particularly when the conditions are a little bit above and beyond the normal. Like in this case, we want to make sure that not only the contractor and the builder understand, but that the homeowners understand their ongoing responsibility for fire protection. And then he also references the 2006 Utah Wildland Urban Interface Code. This is a Class 3 ignition-resistant construction. The roof coverings, he says it's Class A roof covering of asphalt shingles will be installed. The unenclosed underfloor protection, all combustible underfloor decks and eaves will be covered with soffits. That's during a phone conversation with Brett Miller that was confirmed, and so was the Class A roof confirmed during a phone conversation with Brett Miller. And probably during that same phone conversation, it was also confirmed they will use 1/8 inch mesh screen will be installed on all openings per the building code.
That's also standard for all our houses in the wildfire hazard areas.
Okay. And then, out of Providence City Code, property owners are encouraged to implement the following. We've already discussed the roof. We encourage people to inspect their property regularly, clearing dead wood and dense vegetation from at least 30 feet around your home. Rake piles of leaves and twigs if on a hill. More space will be needed to protect your home. A fuel break should be maintained around all structures. We don't have this in the code, but I do know from personal experience, if you have a really large property and it's a natural vegetation property, and if it's within 30 feet of somebody else's property line, and then you have to maintain that area as well.
And I believe the entirety of the yard is going to be landscaped. It's my understanding that whole back portion as well is going to be, it's going to be a pretty big yard. It's my understanding that they're going to take care of that. They've planned to landscape quite a bit of it.
Okay. All right.
So there should be a pretty good buffer.
Okay. And then it also recommends moving firewood away from the house or attachments like fences or decks. And then we've talked about vents and the driveways. That takes care of Aaron's comments. Now, the comments the mitigating strategy comments, were these prepared by Visionary or were these prepared by the Millers?
These are prepared by me based on what I've been told is going to happen on the lot. I actually also have a little update on those as well. I brought you guys a detail. I found out just this morning that they were going to maybe hold off on doing some retaining walls, but they determined that they want to do some small 4 feet or less retaining walls in the back. But I know that where it's in the landslide area, they do need to have an engineer detail. So they're going to do rock walls, and they sent me the detail for how those will be in place, and it is approved by Alliance Engineering. So it's my understanding that it's going to be kind of as needed in portions of their backyard. And like I said, they're all going to be 4 feet or less. But they're going to use, if you guys want copies, I can hand it to you if you have questions. They're going to use this boulder wall detail. I know that the boulder wall says it can go up to 10 feet with this system. I was told it's going to be 4 feet or less for any that are built.
They didn't happen to give you an illustration of where these walls are in relationship to where the driveway and the residents and the garages and all that are, did they?
I was told that it's gonna be in the backyard, and they're doing the landscape, they're just gonna kind of do it as needed when they've got grade, when they get it a little bit more graded and see where
Okay.
spots are.
Now, I don't remember the picture. I know it's in the packet. I just don't remember. They do understand they're not supposed to disturb 30% slope, right?
Yes.
So even with, they can't go up there and terrace it and create retaining walls and stuff. So
No, it's not gonna be like
it's
steeply-
not that far to the east.
No,
that
and like
they're
I
doing
said,
this.
I was just told it's gonna be around the backyard, just kind of as needed on a few spots. It's not gonna be extensive.
Okay.
Trying to think about how far up the mountain that property goes, and start wondering how, because the deer fence, it gets super steep.
Right.
It goes up the hillside quite a ways above and beyond us. So that deer fence trail goes on.
Right.
Are they thinking of landscaping past the deer fence or just on their side of the deer fence?
Just on my side, just so they're up to the deer fence. Then after that, I know they've said that it's gonna be pretty well maintained, like as far as just making sure it's cleared and everything. So there might be some small areas that they do a little bit more work in. Like I said, they are planning on having the majority of it be a nice big yard. But then where the deer fence, I was just told they're gonna landscape just as much as it keeps to keep it maintained and keep it cleared out and not dense.
Okay.
So they might do a little bit of grass past that, but I don't know it's gonna be a ton. But I know they are gonna go up all the way to, and maybe just a little further, just to make sure that it's all cleared out and kept nice.
Okay. Max, do you have anything you want to add after having a chance to look at the illustration on the retaining wall?
No, not really. It would be nice to know, their intent and how much of that they're gonna use. It would be nice if it was shown on the site plan, but, I don't know, as long as it's, I guess, used sparingly, it's not. I mean, it does bother me a little bit that this is showing a 10-foot maximum, and if they started doing 10-foot walls back there, like I said, then
Yeah.
Well, it's my understanding of city code that it's after it gets 4 feet tall is when it requires city approval, and they have said they're going to keep them 4 feet or less because they don't plan on it being massive. It's not going to be Tony Smith's cement wall going into the setback. I made sure we're not going to do something that big. And I did tell them that, okay, if you're really going to do this, it really cannot go over this. They need to be used sparingly because at that point, we need to make sure I need a fully detailed landscape then before I'd.
Well, I believe what you're saying, but this illustration says a 10-foot max on here.
Right, so
It
that's,
it doesn't even show what they think you're going to do if it's only 4 feet.
so and that was my question to them. And from what I understand is this is a standard rock wall detail we've done on many homes. And so our landscaper or engineer looked at it and said it can go up to 10 feet. And so that's why they've approved it, is it's up to 10-foot option, but it is going to stay 4 feet or less. So that's just the standard detail we use for that rock wall. It doesn't mean it has to be up to 10 feet. It's just saying it's possible, but on this, we will not be going above 4 feet.
Okay, so Diane, will you add that into the record of decision? Since I totally believe what you're saying, Jessica, but since there's nothing on this signed stamp drawing that says what you're saying, that reflects the 4-foot limit, we'll just need to make sure that that's reflected
Do you want me to write a note on it?
in the
and sign
notes.
it? Can I seriously write a note and sign it with that?
Well, unfortunately.
And then it's got my name on it? I'll pinky promise.
We'll put it in the.
I do have a question. On that. With one being the builder, how do you transfer all of those requirements onto the next property owner, and then how does it pass? I mean, we get a decision, we're going to give you the decision, you're going to inform them, but at some point, it's going to need to make sure that they really have it in hand. Do you give them a booklet? When you finish a house?
Well, we give them a copy of all of the zoning things if there's requirements like this, like especially on wildfire, we give them and we're like, hey, this is what Providence City says since you're in a wildfire hazard area. And we do make sure that all those things are like that. We're like, you need to read through this because we do have to keep these within reason of what, you know, we've said we do in the zoning meeting. It's the requirements of the city. And when we're on site, if they're going to want to do something like that, we have to go back to the zoning and say, hey, this is what's approved. So if you're going to change this, frankly, at that point we go, we have to abide by what we've zoned with this city. So I mean, after closing, if they want to come back to you and when it's all on
I
them,
understand,
but,
then you're out, but I was curious how you package that up onto them
I
and,
scan it and I give them a big copy and I say this is, and I tell the project manager and I tell the salesperson, I say this is what the city has said to do. If you want me to explain it to the homeowner myself, I can. Otherwise, I need to read through this whole packet. This is what we talked about, and they tell them at our pre-constructions meeting is usually when that's communicated. So,
Rob, do you have anything you want
It's not necessarily related too much to these two traditional use reasons, but water pressure and volume up there when it comes to the designing of the sprinklers, particularly those homes east of 850 East, needs to be thought through really closely and hard by the homeowners and the landscape architects.
okay.
I think that they're going to put a lot of grass, like it sounds like they're planning. They're going to need a lot of zones. They're working and static pressures are just at a point that I want everybody to cross their T's twice before they start.
Yeah, have you ever heard what happened in Red Slide in Wellsville? They didn't plan for water pressure, so that's where I grew up, is right by there. So when people at the top of the subdivision tried to like turn the shower on or flush the toilet, other people down the road, their water pressure drop so bad you couldn't turn the faucet on in their kitchen. So no, I totally get that, and I'll make sure they understand that because we don't want that to happen. That's very important to make sure that's planned well.
You start climbing hills like this, and there might be 80, 90
Yep.
plus pressure at the meter. But they go up those hills, and depending on what line sizes they put, and how long and what's the stretch up the hill, and they add a lot of sprinklers, it can really dynamically change what they hope will happen.
Oh yeah, I'll make sure that's communicated to them, and I know that they've talked about that a little bit, making sure they get it in well. Because I kind of joked, it's like, Dustin, they really, because the our sales agent, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna do all this grass, and I was like, well, make sure they plan right for that, because you might end up, it's kind of the joke of Wellsville, if you live in Red Slide, you have to coordinate with your neighbors when you're gonna do your dishes. So,
one other thing that I want to chat about just a minute. Aaron brought it up, but you know, on the original plat, it talked about the deer fence trail being relocated, and before everything was taken care of, we ended up getting easements across for the deer fence road. At some point, that trail may get relocated, but the road will not. The road will stay there. So we have had some people that have called and talked to us about these lots, and I'm not sure if the Millers were one of them, but I just want to make sure that they understand, even if the trail portion of the road trail gets relocated further east up the mountain, the road will stay in place. So,
and they'll still be required to make sure any kind of gate or anything is
Right.
approved. Okay.
yes.
That makes
So-
sense to me. I mean, if anything, it's probably fire access.
That's
too.
what it
So
is.
it's
for
gotta be kept
emergency
clear.
vehicle access.
Well, then it's definitely in their benefit since it's their house that'll be up there. I'll make sure that they understand that even if the easement moves, the road should still be maintained and
It's a brush
and accessible.
Yeah, the road easement will not move, but the trail may at some time relocate.
Okay.
And so people just need to understand there's a difference between the road easement and the trail relocating.
Okay.
All right. Is there
Makes
anything
sense
else?
to me?
Nope.
Rob, anything else you want to bring up?
Nope.
Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion to approve the conditional use requested by Visionary Homes and Brent and Diana Miller for a new home located at 254 North, 850 East in Providence, based on the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions that were in the staff report on Aaron's letter and that we've discussed, with the additional condition, since we just received the drawing on the rock wall, that based on information presented at this meeting, those walls will not be more than 4 feet above ground. Does that meet with your approval?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Motion by Max Pierce, second by Rob Stapley. One other thing, we've talked about it, so I don't know that it needs to be in the motion, but I just want to say, in the very end, the earth will do what the earth is going to do. We're trying to mitigate all these strategies and everything, but there's no guarantee that the earthquake won't happen or the landslides won't come. But it will have to pass fire inspection, and it will have to pass building code inspection for all of that stuff.
Of
So
course.
we can't.
And I think, I know Diana talked about in the email in regards to the fault line hazard. I've got that statement there. It's the same thing they told us on the Weiner lot, that as long as it's so many feet away from the fault line, we're okay. We are going to be performing another geotech at DIG. I believe I list that in there just to make sure as well
Okay.
that we're on in a good spot, so.
That's good.
That being said, Max made the motion. Rob was second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one's approved. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay,
you can just stay there.
Site plan.
Oh, I have another home with you guys. Just kidding, I won't just stand up.
You do. That's why we.
This-
Totally forgot about that.
This brand new site plan that was submitted also shows the driveway width exceeding the city minimum or maximum.
Remind me what the
So the
city maximum
driveway
is.
cut. So the driveway cut cannot exceed 35 feet. 850 east shows it at 37.8.
Tell them to take it down to
35
2.5 feet, 2 feet and
35.
8 inches.
is the maximum.
Okay, I'll get that taken care of. I'll have them go do that this afternoon. I'll send it down a new one, so you can have it.
Okay, our third item is that the Administrative Land Use Authority will consider for approval a request by Visionary Homes for a new home located at 188 East, 520 North in Providence. Diane, do you want to introduce this one for us?
This application was received on October 1st, and Rob Stapley inspected the current infrastructure on October 7th, or signed the paper on October 7th anyway, that was today. The findings of fact are the same. Conclusions of law are a little bit different. Number 2 is this parcel is in a hazard water table area. The conditions are the applicant will continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, and Providence city rules, laws, codes, and ordinances. The applicant will mitigate hazard water table by, and they've submitted a mitigation letter and the window well drain detail. This conditional use is for the residents only as shown. The site plan dates down to October 1st, 2020. Approval by the city of any application submitted or paperwork does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from the responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any law to be violated.
April, do you have anything you want to comment on this one?
No.
Ryan, do you have any comments for this one?
I think so.
This house is a lot easier.
Yes.
It's a break for mine after the last couple.
Yeah, we've got one more of yours coming up. It's a tricky wicket. Not on today's agenda though. Ryan, I'm sorry, did you say you think so or you don't?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Max or Rob, do you have any questions, concerns on this?
I don't.
I do not.
Okay. Okay, that being said, this is a homes in the Vineyard subdivision. The Vineyard subdivision, as Diane stated, has a high water table. The land drain will be utilized. The land drain has been approved during the subdivision process as a mitigation standard, and we've continued to honor that through the conditional use process. So I would entertain a motion for approval of the request by Visionary Home, for approval of the conditional use request by Visionary Homes for a new home located at 188 East, 520 North in Providence.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Rob Stapley, second by Max Pierce. One last time, if there's any comments. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, it was unanimous, so it is approved. And Diane will get those records of decision written up, and she'll contact you with the fees and everything so that you can pick them up and move on to the county.
Sounds like a plan.
All right,
Thanks, guys.
thank you. Unless there's something else that anyone wants to discuss at this point in time, that concludes our business for the Administrative Land Use Authority. Any item that it would be brought up now, we would just discuss whether we should put it on a future agenda or not. We would not make a decision on it. So is there anything anybody else has that they want us to consider for a future agenda item? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion by Rob Stapley, second by Max Pierce. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye.